Welcome to Franchise Marketing Radio, brought to you by SeoSamba. Comprehensive high-performing marketing solutions for mature and emerging franchise brands. To supercharge your franchise marketing, go to SeoSamba.com. That's SeoSamba.com.
Lee Cantor here, another episode of Franchise Marketing Radio, and this is going to be a fun one. Today we have with us Dan Rothfeld with Mainland. Welcome, Dan.
Hey, Lee. Thanks so much. Pleasure to be here.
Well, I'm excited to hear what you're up to. Tell us a little bit about Mainland. How are you serving folks?
So Mainland initially started out about close to about 15 years ago now. Founder of the company is a gentleman by the name of Nick Powells. And their original kind of focus area was in franchise marketing. And today we serve about 120 different franchise brands in virtually every business vertical that you can possibly imagine. And essentially, we're providing them with digital marketing services, media. We leverage technology, particularly through a couple of digital channels that we have created that allow us to be able to provide much more targeted type of a result back to our clientele, leveraging off the digital channel as well as the data and analytics that we can generate as well.
So now, since its inception, it was always focused on serving franchise clients?
Yep. The last 14 years have been predominantly focused, well, actually entirely focused on servicing the franchise community. And now with the advent of some of these digital channels that I mentioned, we're now starting to branch out into areas like real estate, personal finance, restaurant technology, and a couple of other business verticals as well, including the travel industry as well.
Now, by specializing primarily on franchisors, is your work helping that franchisor get found by potential franchisees? Is it helping the local franchisees get more local business? Is it a combination of all of that?
Yeah, it's C, all the above. The primary focus has always started out in the development arena. So it is, as you mentioned, trying to connect up prospects that might be interested in that franchise concept. And then also as that franchisee becomes part of that system and gets onboarded, working along with the franchisor and the franchisee to provide certain marketing tactics to make that franchisee much more successful.
Now, is there anything that you could share with our listener that maybe they're an emerging franchise that's just getting started? Maybe they got some traction locally. Now they're saying, hey, I think that this can scale. I think we can do this in other markets. Is there kind of some do's and don'ts that you've learned over, dealing with hundreds of brands?
Well, predominantly what you want to be focused on is make sure that if it's an up and coming franchisor, it's essentially leveraging the founder story. Why did the founder think that this was an interesting business to develop on their own? And then as that business grew and evolved and became something that could be created into more of a franchise concept in which that business basically becomes almost business in a box. All the issues that a prospective franchisee might face entering into that type of a business or that industry have already sort of been factored in. And, there's a very high success rate, which is obviously what people want when they're buying into a franchise. You want to leverage the fact of why the founder decided to enter into that business, and whether it's lifestyle or whether it's, as a result of a particular opportunity, and leverage that franchise story, because that will resonate with prospective franchisees that might have an interest in that type of a business.
Now, that's an interesting tact. My background's in marketing, so that, to me, really is at the heart of marketing and advertising, is you have to kind of attack the heart first before the brain. And it sounds like that you're in agreement from that standpoint that the why has to be there, the mission, whatever kind of the overarching emotional goal has to maybe be at the forefront, and then still back it up by the facts of it's replicable and it scales and we have everything in a box. That's secondary. I mean, those are must-haves, but they're secondary in the storytelling of the brand.
Yes. So, within Mainland, one of the primary premises that we always talk about internally with our staff, and we certainly talk about it with the franchisors that we work with, is it's called, why you, why now? And it is, building upon that story of why that person decided to get involved in that business. What was happening in that person's life. Because at the end of the day, people sell brands. Brands don't sell brands. So it really does start, in fact, with the person's story or the founder's story. And then, yes, to your point, clearly the investment, the franchise investment obviously has to be there. But what drives people to get into a business or to get into a franchise there's always something beyond the dollars and cents as to why a person decides to make that type of an investment.
Now, having done this for a minute or so, has the reasons people buy a franchise kind of changed, as we enter hopefully a post-pandemic era?
I would say that, generally speaking, I think, well, I'll say this as it relates to, current dynamics is people are looking for an opportunity to control the agenda as opposed to letting the agenda control them. And I think that there is, certainly a fair amount of frustration out there and just a potential interest of doing something besides, more of a 9-to-5 or, a traditional corporate type of a role. And certainly the pandemic has, if anything, just increased that desire and that feeling out there, generally speaking. So it's just, really about the individual and their ability of being able to control their life and wanting to do something that they get fulfillment out of and perhaps change the balance of their lifestyle. Those are generally where people start out in their look to ask the question, is there something else out there in life besides just, punching in at 9 and clocking out at 5?
Now, do you think that any of that is also coming from the fact that like interest rates are so low and that a traditional retirement, some of the things that you would invest in a traditional retirement aren't there, and you're going to have to add some more level of risk into your kind of financial future as you exit maybe that corporate gig or that enterprise career that you had for a period of time, that now you have to kind of take more of these kind of swings in order to maintain a lifestyle?
I think certainly there's a certain type of demographic where that resonates for sure. And I also think that once again, that's looking at things in a very opportunistic type of a way, coming off of something that kind of certainly has started off to be, and maybe even still is to a certain extent, a negative in terms of the pandemic, but leveraging the fact of, current economics and current situations to look at it in a very, business or financial type of a way that, this perhaps is something for us to take advantage of because of how things have essentially set themselves up right now as it relates to economics and finances, for sure.
Now, is there any, are you seeing kind of the demographic of a potential franchisee getting younger? Are younger folks kind of choosing this path as opposed to, maybe like you said, get that 9-to-5 where I'm just a cog in the machine and then I'll work my way up? And if they go the franchise route, then they have a little more say and control over their destiny.
Certainly, if you go back in, you look at the research as it relates to, Gen Z and the millennial generation, they're certainly much more focused in on lifestyle. And so once again, franchising as an opportunity is something that may appeal more to that demographic for certain reasons than other generations.
So are you seeing like more like parent-child kind of combos where maybe the parents funding some of this for the kids to get them going in a career rather than them kind of going out and getting that corporate gig?
Yes. And actually, to be honest, that's something that I've personally seen, throughout my franchising career. At one time, I was chief operating officer and chief revenue officer for a company called Choice Hotels International. And there was a lot of generational, tie-in where, the older generation made the initial investment, and then it became very much of a family type of a business where they were originally investing in one property and then cultivated that business and ultimately allowed them the flexibility of being able to purchase and or build other hotels. And then as their children came of age and expressed an interest, then they would bring them into the business as well.
Now, are you seeing more kind of professional franchise owners where they're building kind of portfolios of complementary brands and they're kind of looking at a market a little differently because once they have that customer acquired, then they can kind of share them among several brands? Or is that a trend that you're seeing?
Yes. And again, it's a trend for sure, but it's been a trend that's actually played out for quite some time, particularly, again, if I look back into the hotel industry, and at Choice, we have or had 15 different brands that we operated and sold. And the part of the business model in that type of industry is saturation. So particularly at Choice, where it was a limited service type of a hotel product, investors and developers would buy a piece of property, let's say right off of a cloverleaf of an interstate, and they would build that property, and then they might choose to open up maybe even one or two, or in some cases, even three other properties on the other parts of that cloverleaf that were all different brands, but yet still owned by the same ownership and developer.
So you're seeing some of that, the evolution of that's now trickling into other kind of sectors?
Home services, the restaurant industry, that's definitely something that's you're seeing out there.
Now, when an emerging firm or franchise partners with Mainland, what does that look like? Are they coming to you with maybe they got burned before, they weren't happy with their previous kind of marketing help, or are they coming to you as saying, hey, look, this is our best guess on how this is working and we need an expert to help shape our direction? Like, what is kind of your relationship with your clients?
Yeah, it really, it's very dependent upon the franchisor. So in some instances, it's an upstart and they're looking for that type of a relationship. They didn't have to have that when they were just kind of a standalone, operating unit. Now that they're starting to explore the franchise concept, they need somebody that they can work with that will assist them in creating market generation for prospects that might be interested in that brand. Or it could be an experienced or existing brand that may have had a previous relationship and that relationship has not evolved. And that's one of the things that we definitely strive in our business is to make sure that we're not standing still, because business doesn't stand still. So the ability of being able to, understand how demographics are changing, how technology is changing, how storytelling, because at its crux, that's what marketing is all about, is storytelling. How is that changing, and how can we help that brand tell its story, in a more constructive or better way that's going to resonate with the demographics that they're trying to capture. And once again, I think for us as our own brand, we tend to look at things as, one, we are telling a story, but we're trying to try create a emotional attachment with that prospect versus just strictly looking at this as a franchise business investment and an economic investment. And that's what we try and center our messaging around.
Can you share a story? Don't name the name of the brand, but maybe give the backstory of they were struggling with this. They started working with Mainland, and then we helped them get to this new level.
Well, there's quite a few.
Right, but talk about one that's memorable in the sense that they had a hard problem, and that they really were kind of, had a real challenge, and we were able to be creative and solve their problem.
Yeah, well, one that just kind of comes to mind because it's a conversation we were just having very recently, which is, once again, the messaging that their current marketing firm was using was much more focused in on the numbers of the franchise, the franchise investment that a prospective owner would make, not necessarily focusing on the value and the story behind that franchise. And we had the ability of being able to change that messaging. Not only did that almost immediately have an impact on the quality of the prospect that we were able to provide to that franchisor, but also the sheer numbers of people who were interested in it, as well as, I think, telling the story better so that people understood what the franchise opportunity was. And then consequently, having the ability of being able to create an environment in which that franchisor could be much more successful at selling that franchise concept internally or organically versus having to leverage a broker type relationship or the broker community to do that. And also, trying to leverage the resources that franchisor kind of already brought to the table, but might not have been communicated where people, totally understood that.
So do you see a lot where the franchisor kind of has gold right around it and they don't see it? Like maybe they take it for granted, or they don't see the value that maybe somebody on your team could see and say, oh man, that's right in front of you. Why aren't they doing more of this?
All the time. We do brand. We just in this past week, we did 3 different brand assessments. And what you find out, and I think this is the case, whether you're a mom and pop business or whether you're a portfolio company like a Choice or some of the other larger portfolio companies out there that have multiple brands, sometimes you get so busy in working in your business, you don't really take the time to step back and work on your business. So because you're so focused in on sort of the day-to-day, you don't kind of take account or do an inventory of what you may already have that you're really not taking advantage of. And particularly that's where the brand assessment process that we do with our clients is incredibly beneficial.
Well, Dan, thank you so much for sharing your story today. If somebody wants to get a hold of you and have a conversation with you or somebody on the team, what is the website?
You can go to hellomainland.com. And certainly feel free to reach out to me or Nick, and we'd be happy to have a conversation with you.
Good stuff. Thank you again for sharing your story. You're doing important work, and we appreciate you.
Hey, you bet. Thanks so much for the time. I appreciate it.
All right, this is Lee Cantor. We'll see you all next time on Franchise Marketing Radio.